Hey, how's it going? You're listening to Hard Talk Radio. I'm your host, MrDeadman, and with us here tonight is C. Michael Forsyth. How are you doing?
I am glad to be here. I'm doing great.
Hey, it's good to have you here, and I'm glad that you are glad to be here. We were supposed to do something Monday, but schedule stuff happens. You know, I'm bad at it too. Sometimes I forget. Oh my God, I have to write it down. Okay, this, it is what it is, man. But you know what? We're doing it now. We're going to talk about sexy vampires here tonight. We're going to talk about your book, Night Cage, and who knows what else? Who knows what else? But you are a fan of horror, which is why why we cross paths, because that's what interests me. And if you're interested in horror, come on Hard Talk Radio and pretty much start off with this one question: who are you, and what does your dad do?
What does my dad do?
Oh.
Well, I am Michael Forsyth. I am a realtor by day, horror writer by night. My dad is no longer with us, but when he was with us, he was a Episcopal priest.
Oh, nice. I totally botched that question, though. Who are you and what do you do? But hey, that's good. That's good.
Well, I haven't been asked, what does your dad do in a long time? So it kind of threw me. There's a certain age at which, you'd ask somebody that. And then after a certain age, you'd never be asked that again.
Right.
It felt youthful.
So religion plays a part in your family?
Yes, it does. Very sort of spiritual. I mean, we used to go to church every Sunday, and tonight, of course, is Good Friday.
It is.
So back in the day, I'd be in church for, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, the whole thing. It was quite an experience, and there is a connection definitely between religion and horror. My father, when he was getting an advanced degree in theology, one of the things that they had them read was The Exorcist, believe it or not.
Like the novel?
Yes, because it was such a big cultural phenomenon, and it was a way that a lot of people were connecting with religion, strangely enough, in the public. The idea being, I suppose, if you believe in the devil, well, then surely you must believe in God as well.
I mean, they kind of come together in the same package.
Yes.
So, wow, that's deep. We might go back into that. We'll find out what happens. But so what about for you? Like, what is your passion for horror? Like, where does that come from, and why horror?
Well, I think it's very visceral. When I was a child, my sister would compel me, well, I enjoyed it, to watch the old Universal horror type movies. They had something in New York then. It was called Chiller Theater. I guess most parts of the country it went by different names, but we'd watch, the old werewolf, the old Frankenstein, the teenagers versus the blob type of things, and it was quite a ritual that I loved, and yet would always go to bed terrified and regretting it, and having just terrible nightmares almost every night. So I had that relationship with fear and the supernatural from an early age, and I think in a lot of my work I'm still able to channel that.
Hey, but that's a good connection, though. I mean, getting involved in horror, or I guess being indoctrinated in horror through the classics, that's good. That's good. Which we'll get into that, I'm sure, when we get into Night Cage, being a vampire-themed. So it's a book, a comic book?
It is a graphic novel.
Graphic novel.
It's a graphic novel.
Okay. And you wrote it, and someone else... Go ahead.
Yes, I wrote it, and a young Italian fellow named Vincenzo Pietropaolo illustrated it. It was originally a screenplay, and I
Okay.
adopted it for to be a graphic novel. I still hope that it one day will be bought and made into a film. I think it'd make a very good one.
I think so too, just based on the cover alone. Based on the cover alone, it should be pretty interesting. Let me go ahead and put the cover here on the screen for people to see. Let me go put it on the big screen there. Yeah, it looks nice. Night Cage, Volume 1. Now, was this crowdsourced?
No, this one I funded myself. This takes us about halfway through the story. Simply put, the story is about a vampire who is sent to an underground prison, women's prison, and quickly begins to spread the evil contagion throughout the other female prisoners. And in a short time, the only people who have not yet been killed or converted are 4 badass women who are in solitary confinement in the very bottom of this underground prison. And so they must escape and battle their way up through this army of the undead, going up layer and layer, and then escape from this supposedly inescapable prison.
Huh.
So
It's like a
Volume
Dante's
1 takes
Inferno,
us to the point
in a way.
where the girls have broken out of solitary, and now in part 2, which is one that I will be doing through a Kickstarter, is their escape.
Oh, cool. So they're in this prison, and the vampire contagion is spreading. Now, does that present a problem for the vampires in that they're running out of food?
Well, it really hasn't been gone along so to the degree that becomes a problem, running out of food. That's always a problem with the vampires taking over the world scenario, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. I think there was a movie about that.
I think that eventually they will have to be. Their plan is to be released from the prison, to escape and just go out into the world. Every vampire girl going in a different direction and spreading mayhem everywhere. But for now, they are taking some people as, I guess, blood cows, for lack of a better word, guards, and others just being sucked dry.
Right. But that makes sense. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to farm if you want to survive, like in a prison like that. If you're a vampire anyway, you can't convert everybody. And there was a horror movie about that. I think it was called Daywalkers, where essentially everybody is a vampire just about, and like blood's running out because the food's running out because they converted too many people. They weren't farming correctly. Come on, be smart about it. Come on now.
You'd really have to think it through.
Yes.
You'd really have to think it through how you're going to do it. And in this case, the Sheila, who is the vampire patient number 1, I guess you could say, she is very stealthy about how she goes about converting people, and she kind of uses her sexual allure to win over likely candidates.
Hey, that's a good way to do it. Oh, but Michael, isn't that cliche? Vampires using the allure of sexuality. Isn't that cliche?
Well, it's a very interesting that you should ask that question, because I was speaking to a author who had compiled an anthology of vampire stories by Black authors. The title of it is Slay. It's just a great anthology. You should check it out. Nicole Kurtz Givens is the editor of it. But I had this very question because there were 2 stories in which well, no, more than two. There were several in which it was a lesbian vampire. So
Okay.
what is going on with vampires and lesbianism? And her reply was that twofold. One is that, when you're a vampire, you're now sort of an apex predator. You're living forever, so all morality kind of goes out the window.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that the woman who was normally in other stories a character who is victimized, she becomes the aggressor, and there's a certain excitement
Right.
when that goes on that makes that natural. But of course, now it's not just a cliche. Let's be honest. Let's keep it real. In women's prison, there's a lot of going on.
Oh yeah, there is. This is not a family-friendly show. You could say it. Yeah. There's a lot of dominance going on. A lot of who's gonna be top dog. That's going to happen. A lot of manipulating, and they'll use anything they can to get there. And what you said too, we're talking about vampires being an apex predator. They hunt. And what do predators do? They lure their victims. Well, if they know that people are going to be attracted to certain things, why did they not use that to their advantage? It only makes sense. It only makes sense.
It only does. And I think the only way in which my story deviates a bit from real female prison is that in real female prisons, I don't know if all the lesbians are hot. But
they're probably not all hot. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen Orange is the New Black, and not all those characters are hot either. I mean, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did throw a few in that were not that attractive. There's a character, Murphy. Murphy is a like a neo-Nazi skinhead.
Okay.
And she's not too attractive. People assume that she's a lesbian from looking at her, but she's just burly.
Okay.
And there are 4 women who end up stuck in the bottom of the prison in the solitary. One is Arabella. She is sort of your kind of typical ingenue blonde. She's kind of based on the very young Jane Fonda in her appearance,
okay.
if you can imagine that. There is Angie O'Reilly, who's a kind of a wisecracking Irish type, curly red hair. She's kind of modeled off of the very old women in prison movies. There'd be the gum snapping, the gum smacking, like Brooklyn Girl.
Okay. All right.
Like that.
Okay.
There is Peaches Kincaid. She's a black girl who is she was actually imprisoned because she was actually had been a preacher, and Klansmen had blown up her church.
Oh shit.
And so she does not take very kindly to white folks now, especially she does not like Arabella, who's a bit of a redneck. She's, kind of, they call her a trailer park Barbie is what they call her. But then, so they were all hot in different ways. Like Peaches is a bit more athletic looking, and Angie is kind of a vavoom Jane Mansfield type of physique. But then there is sort of a wild card. There is Pudgy, who is kind of a bit rotund.
Okay.
And she is a flat out gay. She's because there's the gay for the stay.
Yeah.
The expression, okay, you're gay in prison, but not out of prison. But she's gay. She has a girlfriend, and her girlfriend has been converted to vampirism. So she's kind of in a bit of a quandary.
Yeah, she has to decide what she wants to do. Does she want to kill the vampire? Or does she want to join that side?
Yes. Yes. To just at a certain point toss in the towel, and if you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah.
So this is very much sort of in terms of things that kind of influenced me. I've very much like the old Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay. All right.
And that concept of a community being taken over, and the survivors sort of fighting for their very humanity.
Like Salem's Lot too.
Yes, Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
Well, I just love Salem's Lot just incredibly. I think that was the first Stephen King story I read, and I very recently listened to the audio of it with my son, and I was struck by how much time he spends just setting the stage and talking about the characters in this town. And you know, obviously King can be a bit long-winded, but here it just kind of worked perfectly because he creates this environment so believably that when the poop hits the fan, you know, it's like happening in a real place.
Yeah.
And so yes, that thing of the insidious taking over, it really appealed to me. So I described this as sort of like Salem's Lot meets Orange is the New Black, if you will.
Hey, that's a good blend. I like that, and I like your diverse characters. You have different ones. You have a variety there, and they seem like they wouldn't really work well together due to personal clashes, and especially Black Chica doesn't really like white girls very much because Klansmen blew up her church. But they have to learn to work together to get past these evil bloodsuckers.
Exactly, and that's what you want in the, whether it's a siege scenario or I compare this also a bit to the Poseidon adventure, which if you recall, the ship is turned upside down and they have to work their way up level by level. So it's a bit structurally the same. And as you remember, a diverse group of people who are bickering along the way, you need that conflict. And I like the idea of the characters looking physically different. And I tell you, it's the strangest thing. Even if you're dealing with really top-notch, experienced comic book artists, it's very hard to find someone who can draw women different ways. Like, for the most part, they figured out how to draw women's faces.
Yeah.
And that's the face they stick with.
Yeah.
And all that tends to vary often is the hair. The hair colors is all that changes.
I noticed that. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And body type as well. You know, they have, okay, this is the body type. And I was rather insistent that, no, I want these bodies to look different the way women's bodies really do look different. Yeah. But I had to crack the whip a bit with him because he didn't first get that, and that it has to be consistent. So if one character is a little taller, so I had Sheila, who sort of, she was based actually on Julie Newmar, from the Catwoman. And I wanted her to have that kind of a bit of a beautiful witch face look. And so because she's a bit aristocratic, she is the villain. She's a little bit taller than the other women. But
so she's the head vampire?
I was realizing he was having a little difficulty with it. I said, okay, everybody else is the same height.
Yeah.
To keep it simple.
Hey, that makes sense though. So, but she's the head vampire. She's the one calling the shots.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and she is very, and what I tried to do is have the idea borrowed from Dracula that, you know, when you initially see him, he's an old man. And then as he gets his strength back and takes more victim, he gets younger. And so Sheila, when we first see her, she has herself been the victim of a vampire, and so she's rather sallow and sunken cheeks and circles under the eyes. But as the story progresses, she looks more and more ravishing as she fattens up.
And her name is Sheila, right? Sheila Dane. All right, so Sheila comes in. She's patient zero, pretty much. She's Okay. What's her story? Like, how does she get into the prison? Is that something you can give us a hint on?
When we first meet Sheila Dane, she is bedridden and has been pursued by a vampire. She is a wealthy woman, a socialite, and we meet her initially in her mansion, where her husband, her wealthy husband, has vowed to protect her. So the place is walled and gated. He has security guards surrounding the wall. He has guard dogs within the compound, and he himself is armed with a crossbow. He has his stakes laid out, his cross laid out, and so he's ready for this vampire to come for her one last time.
Okay.
But the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes go astray. So let's put it this way: by the end of the evening, he is no longer with us, and Sheila Dane has been arrested for his murder, and so she is not yet crossed over to vampirism, but she's been bitten, and so by the time she arrives at the underground prison, she has made that transition. So I had to do a little fancy footwork to explain, to get around, the trial, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, it all makes sense.
Okay.
And the reason, you've probably figured out why it's an underground prison, is that daylight is never a factor.
Okay.
Because otherwise, hey, let's go to the exercise yard. Oh, no!
Right. The vampire problem would be taken care of really fast. Wow, the guards didn't even know what was happening. They just turned it to ash. How do you imagine being a guard imagine if this was an underground prison and then it was just a normal prison and the guards didn't even know there were vampires there. And then there's some inmates freaking out about going to the day. Maybe someone didn't even know that they were sick and had vampirism in them or whatever. They just go and all of a sudden they burst into ash. How do you explain that? Yeah.
So the thing about being a prison guard is you really don't care. It's like, should we report this?
Right. So, all right. So we have an underground prison that explains how they're not affected by daylight. Otherwise, I'd ask, are they day walkers or stuff like that? But I guess they're not. They're not day walkers. Which leads to the next question would be, what sort of I guess, traditional mythos do your vampires like adhere to? Like, are they allergic to? Do they react to garlic, crosses, holy water, sunlight, stuff like that?
Yes, and yes. I decided to keep it simple and traditional. In fact, there's a scene where they consult one of the prisoners, who's an old woman from the old countries, like the old gypsy type of woman, who tells them about vampires, and yes, they live on the blood of the living, and they fear most of all the cross of our Lord. So at the end of her speech, she's kind of gone on for a few panels talking about that, and so Angie, the wisecracking one, says, so what you're saying is if we stick with what we know from movies, we'll be okay. Which is, so it kept it simple. So the vulnerabilities, I think the only thing I deviated a little bit is that, as well as staking, they can also be killed by beheading, which I think is, I think that's that's kind of borderline, whether simply a pure beheading of a vampire will kill him or not. You think
it would? I mean, logically, yeah, you lose the head. What do you have? Like, is your body just going to grow back? That doesn't...
Most vertebrates, yes. But, so, if you remember from the TV show Supernatural, they completely flipped the switch because they couldn't be killed by stakes. They could only be killed by beheading.
Yeah.
And then in the TV series Dusk to Dawn, there's a scene they dismembered this guy completely. They put his body in different places, but when he was reassembled, he was fine because nobody had staked him. So in that, you could be headless, but certainly I think it's safe to say that if you've been beheaded, you're out of commission for a while. It's safe to say.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that you're dead too. But other people have different opinions on that. But I don't know. It seems like a head's a pretty big deal. Losing that thing. You know, a stake to a heart, that's pretty big. Beheading, that's also pretty big. Yeah, I don't think it'd come back from that. Like being obliterated by a rocket launcher. Yeah, you're probably not coming back from that either. You know, okay?
Yeah. In my so you know, one of the things I do on the side is I do this blog where I'll do, you know, sort of humorous horror related quote unquote news. So one of them was a revelation that scientists discovered that actually vampires can be killed with a shot in the head. You know, they actually can be killed, and they've just spread this whole set of lies about other things that they're vulnerable to distract us. You know, like, yeah, use garlic, do all this stuff, but basically you shoot them in the head, they're dead.
So the vampires control the media. The vampires control everything. They're just putting out the lies, man. They're gaslighting you. This whole time, you think garlic kills them? You think sunlight kills them? Come on now. You need a revolver. You need a shotgun. No. See, I like how you're thinking. And you do this the tabloid style sort of writings on the side on the blog. We'll get into that too. We will. Now, let's see. You talked about what your character is kind of based off of. Now, were there any sort of like vampire movies or fiction that you really took for inspiration?
Well, you know, I am such a big fan of the vampire genre. Definitely Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
For sure. And I just adored that story. And the original Dracula, I think it really still holds up, you know. It was so brilliantly done, and there's so much techniques he used, like things are left to your imagination. Like if you remember, there's a scene where there's a sequence where the ship that Dracula is on comes from the old country to England, and we're left to sort of infer what happened. That was not a good trip.
No.
You know, but Bram Stoker decides, well, let's just leave that in the reader's imagination.
Right.
And the sexuality, that sexual thing, and the idea of the vampire being alluring. Another movie that I really loved was Fright Night.
Yeah, it was good.
Fright Night. I thought that was just so well done on so many levels. And one of the things I appreciated the most of it was Chris Sarandon's performance as the vampire. He's just such a great actor who, unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't even recognize the name. But if you see his range, it's really startling. I don't know if you remember the movie Dog Day Afternoon.
Dog Day Afternoon. No.
Okay, well, now you have to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, early Al Pacino. He's a different type of criminal than usual. He's a dumb criminal. He's an idiot criminal who tries to rob a bank and ends up having to hold the people hostage. And it turns out after a while that he is doing this to pay for a sex change operation for his trans lover, who is played by Chris Sarandon.
Oh, hey.
So you see him as that, and you see him as this menacing vampire. And it's just astounding. But I think that thing of the idea of the vampire being so charismatic.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
I mean, I would imagine a vampire would have to be charismatic in order to get its victims. Otherwise, you'd be like the vampires from 30 Days of Night, where there is no charisma. You're just a horrible looking monster, and you're just ravaging, like Nosferatu sort of thing. It's like,
more animalistic.
Yeah,
those were terrifying. Those were terrifying vampires. And I like the idea of vampires as being fundamentally monsters and innately evil.
right.
I mean, I loved Interview with the Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the book, and I loved the whole idea of making a vampire sympathetic.
Yeah.
However, on the whole, I don't like vampires light. I don't like them like vampire light. I don't like them being sparkly and they're pretty boys. I like them to be, go for the jugular,
Mm-hmm.
and they're here to, if not convert us all, those that they don't convert, just keep as blood cows. That's my concept. And that's why I go back to Salem's Lot and the invasion of the body snatchers. That idea of a malignant contagion spreading and people trying to fight to preserve their humanity. I think that there's something that really there's something that I wouldn't say it could really happen in that literal sense, but you think of like the Borg in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and how they're kind of a cross between zombies and vampires and pod people all wrapped into one, and robots. And you see what's going on in our society now, where people are incorporating so many artificial intelligence aspects into their lives so willingly. Now it just seems that if Elon Musk said, oh yes, now we have a chip that we can put in your brain that will enhance your intelligence, allows you to have a communication instantly with everybody else with a chip, sort of like a hive mind, people would line up around the block for it. I don't think people would necessarily be fighting to the last man for to hang on to their on-chipped brains.
Hey, that's very true. I mean, right now we have a situation where hypothetically people that are framed to be experts could say, hey, do this thing, take this thing, and it could be a plant that's part of the fuel of the conspiracies was the COVID vaccine, which I'm just like, hey, I don't want to fuel any additional conspiracies to that, but hypothetically, if there was an evil company that was like, maybe they have the best intentions, but what they don't know is that very experimental product would lead to something down the road. I don't know. Like, are you saying like you think that could create like vampires?
Well, listen, I think that what we thought was a mistake, which is that this would have to be forced on us and that we would be fighting it. And I think that now, if you offer people a chance to have something in their brain that would, think about it. You have, number one, first of all, instead of Googling stuff, now you just have you have instant access to all knowledge.
Right.
So basically you have omniscience. You can instantly communicate with anyone on Earth. And, the more you talk about it, the more enticing it gets. At a very minimum, everything that your phone can do now, it's just in your brain. Like your brain is the ultimate mobile device. So I don't think that it's going to have to be implanted in us forcibly. I think people are going to line up. And I think, what happens in terms of vampirism, and where we don't necessarily see how far it will go. Another thing they're talking about is the idea that at a certain point, they're going to be able to upload, say, your entire personality into a machine of some kind, into a computer of
like
some
a cloud?
kind.
A cloud full of
Into
assholes.
the cloud, into a cloud. And then I don't think that this is even at this point unlikely. It's a matter of when, I guess. So what now do we do with your consciousness? We could put it, say, in a wonderful virtual reality type of thing where you think you're in you just feel like you're in your perfect world. Or they put back your consciousness into someone or something, either another person, maybe a clone of yourself, maybe an android. So I think it's what we've always known, and where the vampires come in. We've always known that somehow, someday, it will be offered to us the possibility of having immortality. But
there we go.
It will come at the cost to some degree of our humanity.
Immortality at the cost of your humanity. Would you take it?
Yeah, and it's when you think about it, like in vampire stories, fictions, typically, you have people will. It'd be better to kill somebody than let your loved one become a vampire. And you'd rather just kill me than turn into a vampire. But really, if you were given even that choice, would you become a vampire, given the chance to live forever, but in not perfect existence?
That is interesting. If it was a zombie scenario, it'd be very easy to be like, no, I don't want to be a zombie. But a vampire has a certain allure to it. Immortality. Doesn't seem to be any cost other than you lose your humanity, constantly need something for sustenance. I think I'll be a vampire. I think I'll take it. I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to share this gift for the whole family. Make my wife a vampire. Hey, make my kids vampires too.
Well, and this is where the religious thing comes in, because the question is, well, what is the alternative? Now, back in the day, in 1880, I think it was very clear to everyone, well, the alternative is, well, you just live out your life, die, and go up to heaven. So then it's a clear choice, heaven with God or eternity as a monster. However, I don't know if nowadays, many people, let's say in this country, if they're not atheists, they're at least to some degree agnostic. They're not 100% sure about the heaven business.
And some of the atheists are in other ways kind of spiritual, and it's like, okay, you say you're atheist, but you kind of believe in some spirituality stuff. So what are we talking about here, bro? But looking at this from a religious lens, like, I'm Christian. I struggle though. Obviously, we all do. I think most Christians do anyway. So I would say if I became a vampire and turned my family into vampires, the ticket to heaven's gone. Or, well, I guess I'll just enjoy this mortal. Well, I'll enjoy Earth as long as I can.
But another religious angle, because I do a church radio show, and for the church radio, and we have I had lined up the author for the editor of Slay, that book about vampires by Black writers, and so I realized that it was set to air on Easter Sunday. So the host and I were trying to figure out, well, how can we kind of work this into like a religious thing? And it dawned on me that, blood does come up very prominently in the Bible, and Jesus offers his own blood. Mm-hmm. He offers his blood, and it's a weird thing because it's almost the exact opposite of a vampire when you think about it, because a vampire he takes your blood in order for physical immortality for
Right.
himself.
Right.
Whereas Jesus offers his blood to you for your spiritual immortality. So
Yes. See?
there is a kind of a connection there, and
There
it all
is.
turns on this blood. Blood being the source of all life.
Hmm? Oh yeah, very important. Very important. The symbology is all there. It's good. Really deep. Really deep. And someone mentioned in the chat, Bronx X Beats, thanks for chilling out with us here. He mentioned something about how the vampire bat, or the bat aspect, he doesn't see enough of that in like vampire stories and movies. How do you feel about that? And does anything like that happen in Night Cage?
Well, I'll tell you this much. Of course, the vampires turning into bats, I think is kind of like pretty hokey, and it really isn't used much. But I'll tell you this, I really like the bat-like appearance of the Nosferatu in the film,
Mm-hmm.
in both the original, and then there was a remake later that Werner Herzog did, which also had that appearance. And so the master vampire, who makes a brief appearance and who is a person who makes Sheila as a vampire, he has a very much of a Nosferatu-like appearance, the bat-like teeth, and so the vampires in this have the bat teeth.
Okay.
The frontal. They're banging you with the frontal teeth, not the canine teeth.
Oh, okay.
So your listener there should be happy about that. It's funny because of course there are actually bats that drink your blood and they fly around at night. It's pretty natural that they be the animal that we kind of associate with vampires. But it struck me as very interesting that in Dusk, the movie Dusk to Dawn,
which has my favorite sexy vampire, by the way.
Oh,
one of my favorites. Selma Hayek.
Selma Hayek.
Yeah, she's
long may she live.
Yes.
And still looking hot.
Very much so.
Yeah, unbelievably sexiest female vampire ever. But in the film, the vampires have a bat-like appearance, and they fly. They're flying vampires. Mm-hmm. But in the TV show, they made them snake. They associated with snakes, and they gave them a snake-like appearance, which I hadn't seen since. Oh my goodness, what was that movie with Hugh Grant? Maybe one of your listeners will put in the name. Hugh Grant, Lair of the White Worm.
Okay.
Lair of the White. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, you will love this movie.
Okay.
It is great. It combines vampires and the legend of the Lambton worm. Have you ever heard of that?
I believe so. Inform me.
Well, yes.
Educate me.
For your listeners,
Briefly.
I'll just recap. And the thing of it is, this is a true. I'd say it's a true legend and a true family. That there was a this guy had found this creature in a well. This lord, when he was riding around, and he pulled it out, and it was like this snake-like thing. Anyway, it grew, and it became like this enormous snake-like, dragon-like monster, and it was like rampaging on the countryside. And so the lord, whose job it is to kind of protect the community, goes to this local like witch woman and asks, well, what can we do about this thing? He said, I'll tell you how to fight it, but you must promise me that you will bring to me to slay the first thing that you see after you kill the creature. So this guy isn't like some kid out of Brave. He knows that this woman's going to screw him. So he arranges that after he kills the worm, a dog will be released, and he'll kill the dog. Anyway, what she gives him is a suit of armor with spikes on it.
Okay.
So he goes, the thing wraps itself around him and impales itself on the spikes, and it's killed.
Smart.
And just before the dog is released, his son comes running. Dad, great job. And so, of course, he doesn't slay his son. However, the witch curses his family, the Lambton family, that the firstborn from then on of the family will die, a tragic death. And they did for generations. And so the Lambton, this is a story. Bram Stoker wrote this story, Lair of the White Worm, in which he incorporates that myth and these vampires that are sort of snake-like vampires. And it's said that it's believed that he was going a little bit crazy or senile or something when he wrote it. So I think it gets a little wilder than even Dracula.
Hey, that's good.
You will love this movie. And Hugh Grant, who you think of as like the guy with the floppy hair and in the romantic comedies, he plays the young lord who has now in modern times inherited this castle where all kind of snake cult vampire things is going on, and he's like a square-jawed action hero in this.
That's good. I'll have to check that film out. I will. All right. Now, getting to Night Cage, back to vampires. We're still talking about vampires, of course, but sexy vampires. What are some of your favorite sexy vampires in horror movies?
Well, Salma, that goes without saying. Salma Hayek. I found in True Blood, one that really comes to mind is I forget the name of this character, but she has red hair, and she's the one who it's initially somewhat presented as tragic. She's this girl who's taken away from her, kidnapped from her home. She's like a homeschooled, Bible believing church girl, and Vampire Bill, who's never converted anybody, is for a crime he's committed, he's forced by the other vampires to convert her, and he doesn't want to do it, but he bites her, and she's so terrified. But when she wakes up, she's like, "Woo! Hey, I'm a vampire. I can do whatever I want." And she's just so sexy and so like full of just luscious, ready to go. Let it rip.
Is that Deborah Ann Wool? I think that's her name. Okay.
I think that's right.
Correct me if I'm wrong there, Bronx X Beats and those that listen to this afterwards. Yeah.
And I would say another one, Star in The Lost Boys,
right.
Who was her status after seeing the film again recently. She was like kind of in that quasi phase, in some of them you're not a full vampire until you've fed. Mm-hmm. So she was kind of like in that quasi phase.
Yeah, she's a sort of in between.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of.
She was good looking. I think. What about what's her name? Kate Beckinsale in Underworld.
Oh yeah.
Selena.
Yeah, in fact,
Celine?
I ran,
Celine, right?
and this is why I shouldn't be drawing too much of a blank, because on my blog, I ran a poll for sexiest female vampire of all time, and I think she actually edged out Sama. She had a lot of support. Yeah, mm-hmm. She was there. I mean, to me, it's crazy, insanity. But I think what it is too is people like strong women. You know,
and she was a strong character.
Kicking ass like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the outfit's great. That That leather outfit on her. Oh god dang. She a classic would be what's her name? Ingrid Pitt.
Ah, yeah.
Carmelia?
Yeah. Well,
Vampire Lovers.
Those Hammer movies, those were incredible because it was all about the cleavage. It's like,
yes.
oh my God.
Yeah.
How can you even concentrate on the neck when there's this cleavage going on?
They knew what the draw was. They knew what they were doing there.
Another one. Another 2-1 was Sharon Tate. She was a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And she is in the movie The Fearless Vampire Killers.
That's right.
Which is crazy on so many levels because it's a spoof, a vampire spoof, but it's a spoof specifically of the Hammer movies, and it has that look, and yet it has a rather dark quality to it because it's a Roman Polanski movie, so it has a kind of a darkness to it. And first of all, it's already weird to watch. Roman Polanski is the comic hero, and given his sort of thing, it's hard to think of him as the funny guy now.
Yeah.
And then
so.
And then the thing is, she's the beautiful, like, tavern owner's daughter, something like that, innkeeper's daughter, and he's trying to save her from being, taken by the vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's unfortunately, unable to do that. But, given her Sharon Tate's tragic fate, it adds this other layer as you're watching the movie. I mean, you almost want to cry when he's not able to save her.
Yeah.
But she's a knockout. She's a knockout.
And she's a redhead too, right?
Yes. And let's not forget a surprisingly sexy vampire. The chick, is it Amanda Bierce from what was the show?
Amanda Bierce.
With the guy who always had his hand in his pants watching TV, and he's a shoe salesman, and he had a sexy daughter.
From oh my God, Married with
Children.
Yeah.
Married with Children. So, Amanda Bierce, who played the nosy neighbor, she was the girl in Fright Night.
Oh, she was.
She was, believe it or not.
Oh,
yes.
She was. I didn't even draw the connection. Oh, wow.
It'd be very hard to. But she plays sort of a mousy teen, and of course she becomes like the most horrific looking female vampire you've ever seen. But in between, there's a stage where she's a really sexy vampire.
Man.
The question is always, is there a female vampire sexy enough that you just say, oh, to hell with it? Go ahead, bite me.
Well, for me, it'd probably be Salma Hayek. That would be it. That or Kate Beckinsale. She could turn me into a vampire. That'd be okay. I'd be like, Jesus, I'm sorry. What happens.
Yeah. There are just a few that are worth that, and of course, as we know, women feel the same way about if it depends on the vampire, but if it's Brad Pitt or
yeah, when you Google sexy vampires, there's plenty of male vampires that come up. I mean, everyone has their pickings, everyone has their eye candy, so to speak. I mean, they're all presented as very attractive, very sexy, and once again, people might say, "Oh, that's a stereotype," whatever, but hey, these are apex hunters, right? They're going to be using that physique to lure people in. It's all part of the thing. It's all part of the plan.
Yes.
To bait you.
Although I must say, in one of my news stories, another researcher had found that actually it's a misconception. Most vampires are coyote ugly.
Oh, really?
And yes, because the reasoning is this, that in reality, throughout time, the young, handsome aristocrats, they have bodyguards. And today, the people who look like movie stars, they have entourages and stuff like that. So vampires are pretty much going to attack and convert people who are like in back alley hobos, meth head hookers, people whose teeth look bad even before they were vampires. And so, most of them don't look all that great. And I illustrated it with a picture of, there's a movie where Don Rickles becomes a vampire.
That's funny. That's good.
So it's illustrated with him.
That's something you do on the side too. Not only do you have Night Cage right here, but by the way, where can people get your comic?
Well, this is easy. Right now, the easiest way is just to go on Amazon and look up Night Cage. Yes. At a certain point, I'm going to see if I can get a distribution deal with Dynamite. They want you to run it yourself for a while and get a following before they do that. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay. All right. Okay, so one thing I was going to ask here. Sorry, lost track. There's something.
Well, I think
because I want to get into your tabloid stuff as well, and let's get into that because you write those like kind of like Newsweek or is it not Newsweek? What's that famous tabloid called? Weekly World News. That's what it's called. Weekly World News, like The Sun, that sort of stuff. Daily Star, I guess, things like that. I mean, you used to write those tabloid stuff. So tell us a little bit about that and about the stuff you write.
Yeah. Well, I used to work for the Weekly World News for about 9 years, I would say, as a writer. For those of you listeners who are not familiar with the publication, it was a black and white tabloid, sort of along the lines of National Enquirer stuff, but except that everything in it just about was entirely made up. So there were stories about Elvis being alive and space aliens and Bat Boy and stuff like that. So I mean, I enjoyed that job so much that after the paper folded, I continued to do similar stories of my own. So some of them would be, say, an odd sort of religious thing. So, for example, I did a story on the bookshelf built by Jesus has been found. And then a lot of them have a horror bent.
Okay.
So I'll take some idea, like, there's this thing, well, they're fast zombies and slow zombies, and which do you like? So I did something where it was actually the world's fastest zombie. And they actually have races in Haiti and have, since the 1800s. And this guy, he was actually in life, he had been quite a formidable runner. He was a Frenchman, actually. But now as a zombie, he clocked us an amazing thing. Part of it is just, have that muscle memory.
Yeah.
So, and then quite a few vampire things. One was a company that invented a stake-proof vest. A stake-proof vest. And, Vampire Hunters Association is up in arms about that because, you're giving it, this is corporate irresponsibility at its worst. And, one of the things we used to do at Weekly World News was do a lot of research, because what had to happen is that if you're going to make up something really crazy, everything else in the story had to be true. And you'd kind of inundate the reader with so much stuff that is true and that they could check and was true, that it would leave open the possibility that what was said was true. So I always liked doing that. And so I was fascinated to read some stuff about Vlad the Impaler. Who
yes.
I'm sure most people know is the basis for Dracula, this warlord from the 14th century. And reading about him, I found two interesting things. One was that he had a kid brother named Radu,
I didn't even know that.
And
Is that true?
yeah, that is 100% true. I'll tell you when I'm going into the fake part.
Okay.
But I think you'll probably pick up on it.
Okay.
So, and what happened was, as you know, there was this conflict between the Turks
Mhm.
and Romania. And Dracula and his brother, Radu, were sent as hostages to Turkey. So that, okay, we hold your kids, you hold ours, and so there can't be a war. And what happened is, while he was there, his brother Radu was seduced by this Turkish warlord there.
Mm.
So anyhow, Vlad the Impaler got free, and so what happens is this young guy, this kid brother, stays with these Turks, and he actually is sent in the army against Vlad. And Vlad, this is what people don't understand why he's a national hero. Vlad the Impaler is a national hero in Romania. It's because he fought the Turks and stopped Turkey. Because if not, Turkey would have swept through the Ottoman Empire would have swept through Europe.
Right.
So, and what it was is he was almost in a way like a Braveheart type freedom fighter.
He was.
Recruiting the peasants and stuff like that. So I played on that two things. And so in my story, which was now based on that, the made up part is that this Turkish warlord, the Turks had vampires in their ranks. Like about a third of their ranks were vampires, which was what made them so formidable. They converted his kid brother Radu to a vampire. And so Vlad, when he's impaling people, he's killing vampires. That's why he was doing them, impaling them on huge wooden stakes. So not only was Vlad the Impaler not a vampire, he was the world's greatest vampire killer.
Yeah, vampire slayer all the way.
And now, So the kicker is, what happens is that eventually, slipping back to real life, what happens is that, so the Turks eventually are able to capture Vlad, and he's put in prison. His brother is temporarily put in as king, but Vlad is able to get back the throne. So in my story, what happens is what bugs Vlad is not that his brother was converted to Islam. That was bad. It's not that he usurped his empire. It said he was gay. That's what he did. And so he staked him and regretted it for the rest of his life. And so, so this whole thing is told like some historian is seriously telling this saga.
That's funny. That's good. He might be gay. I don't know. I don't know what the Turks do over there. I don't know what they convert you over to. I don't know. Shit. But So, like, that story was in Weekly World News.
That story I just made up, that's on my website.
That's on your website. Okay.
Yes, there are a lot of stories that I kind of, if I was still working with Weekly World News, it'd be so great to write this story. It's like, well, why not just write it?
Yeah, right.
Put it up on your blog. And eventually I put together some of the best of them in an ebook called Bizarre News that you can also find on Amazon. But my real goal is I really want to have it like when we have conventions again and all this COVID thing has blown over, to have it just like at my booth there. It's just like a newspaper that you can pick up, and it's called Fantastic News, and and it'll be all supernatural stories. So people know, okay, it's not fake news. I'm not trying to pull one over on you. Back to the old days when it was fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, that's the thing I was gonna ask too. Is like, do you miss doing that stuff? Like, because it seems like a lot of fun to do, to write tabloid. Like, obviously it's satirical news, but like nowadays, I would imagine you have a hard time doing it, or maybe there's some difficulty doing it with the whole fake news thing. And
Well, it's just not that fun to do it anymore for a couple of reasons. One is that, well, everybody's doing it now. First, it was just The Onion, and now there's everybody doing satire. Number two, leaves a bad taste in people's mouth when they're deceived now. Now you're trying to deceive them. You're not trying to entertain them, is how they see it. So sometimes something being fake now has a bad connotation. And then the third thing is, how can any satire compare with what's happened over the last 4 years? I mean, anytime you have a situation where The Simpsons perfectly anticipates politics and history,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that tells you how far, and we're living in the Onion universe. So how do you even do satire?
I don't even know. Now you just pretty much have to, well, I mean, I guess I'll just do real stuff now, I guess. I don't know. I don't even have to try.
But I do miss, what I miss most was just the atmosphere, because as you can imagine, it's just a bunch of like 7 people sitting around, and and the thing is, some of the stories were actually true, because sometimes something would come across our desk that was, okay, well, this is better than what I was about to make up. Like there was a story, a woman, she microwaved her baby to death. Not that.
Oh
funny
yeah, I think I heard about that.
But,
yeah, I heard.
But her claim was that in an epileptic fit, she mistakenly put the turkey in the crib and the baby in the microwave. Basically, and so obviously that's better than what we could make up. So we would run that as a true crime story. But we were also just like clipping stories all the time, and maybe there'd be something, well, okay, let's take that and put a spin on it. And the editor, he just had the blackest sense of humor. And I think I started to ingest it, and soon we all sort of had it. And the perfect story would be something that it seems fantastic, and yet there's a glimmer where it could conceivably be true. And there's also some element of humor to it. And when you think about it, it's black humor. And I'll tell you a story. This was before I started working there. I read this story and I'm like, And it was a story about a child that spoke as soon as it was born. As soon as it was born. And then it said one thing coherently, and then its speech became less and less intelligible, and then it stopped speaking and never spoke again. And so, well, yeah, that seems like it would be happening if there was some kind of reincarnation. Maybe it just comes out and then it'll disappear.
Yeah.
But what the baby said was, "Not again." Which, when I read it, I said, "Whoa, that is deep, man." But well, you just laugh, right?
Yeah.
When you think about that's,
Not again.
That's kind of blackly funny.
Better do what I was gonna say, because dark humor. I was gonna say. I don't even know if I want to say here, but abort me. Okay, but yeah, not again is much better, much better.
So if you can imagine in this environment, somebody is constantly standing up and saying, "Did you ever wonder what would happen if?" Or did you hear what happened in England, or stuff like that? And then the editor, a guy named Eddie Clance, he would have this thing of putting like a humorous spin on things that weren't even necessarily funny. Like, it was in the midst of the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, with Bill Clinton, and he had a thing that the Bill Clinton's, the Monica Lewinsky scandal has created a renewed interest in oral sex in America. Just the term renewed interest.
Renewed interest. Everyone's giving a head now. like that. I like that.
Most fun job. And the office was in Florida, so you'd be making up stories all week and then hit the beach.
I think in the 90s they did call that position the Monica. Just give me a Monica.
Yeah, you know that her father, and this is like the saddest thing, but briefly the term "give a Lewinsky" became, and he sued. I don't even know who he sued. Like some paper used this term. You're not going to get that.
Yes.
Reputation back.
No, it's done. It's
wait,
done.
Just let it die, and eventually it'll be a more famous Lewinsky will do something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, man. Oh, that's good stuff. Continue doing that on your blog. Like your blog articles are great. Maybe one day I'll read them on a stream with your permission and see if people
that would be
treat
fun.
it as real. That'd be great. That'd be good stuff.
We just missed April Fool's, so that would have been your perfect excuse.
Now, one of my last questions I ask all my guests is, what is your favorite horror movie and why?
I would have to say Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street for a couple of reasons, about 3 different reasons. One, it was probably the first, one of maybe only 2 movies that frightened me as an adult, genuinely frightened me as an adult, very viscerally. And number 2, the idea of dreams has always fascinated me. As I told you, I had nightmares a lot when I was a child, and I learned to master them. And one thing I learned was the thing of having lucid dreams, which I learned to control pretty well. I mean, I could choose to fly. I'd be aware that I was dreaming. I decide I'm going to go flying, I'm going to fly for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always fascinated me.
Okay.
And you know, in terms of a combination of those 2 things, the night after I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, I had Freddy appeared in my dream, and I said, "Okay, whoa, all right, Freddy, I got news for you. I know that I'm dreaming. I know this is just a dream." He says, "Yeah, I know that you know it's just a dream." Fuck. Wait a minute. Let me think this through. So that's how deep it scared me, and then the surrealism. You know, I think that horror can lend itself to surrealism in a way, and I don't think I've seen a movie where it was used better, more effectively than that. You know, there's a scene especially where Nancy falls asleep in class, and you know, where she's wearing something like a sheep goes walking by, you know, and it just sort of feels right. And so that Wes Craven was able to combine, you know, some just good storytelling and a genuinely horrifying villain. And what made him, I think, so terrifying is that unlike even, say, Dracula or some of the other vampires, you know, a lot of them were sort of unwilling. They themselves at some point were victims, where he wants to be Freddy. And I mean, he was a damn child killer, you know, before he became a dream demon. You know, he was even worse.
Speculated that he was probably worse than just a child killer, but, you know, he was a bad guy, a really horrible guy. This Freddy demon was.
So that is my favorite, without a hesitation, I would say.
That's a good pick. Good pick. A horror monster that torments your dreams, and clearly it tormented your dreams. It appeared in your dreams. That would be scary. Holy hell. Yeah, I know you're dreaming. Oh, shit. Well, I can control my dreams. Can you? I can control your dreams, too.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. It's like,
you can do this all day. Oh, man. That's good. That's good. Well, see, Michael Forsyth, thank you so much for coming on Horror Talk Radio and talking to us about Night Cage, sexy vampires. And it was good. It was a lot of fun.
It was a hoot. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And for everyone who made it this far, press the like button, share, and subscribe. You guys all take it easy. Y'all have a good one.